This is a Pictures in Motion inFocus presentation.
Led by the late Sir James Cruthers, a group of senior executives from Channel 7 Perth established Telethon in 1968 as a registered charitable trust dedicated to raising funds to improve the lives of children and young people throughout Western Australia.
James Cruthers was the first managing director of Channel 7 when we started. Telethon was his idea. He died at the age of 90. A wonderful man who made Telethon what it is today.
A young Jim Cruthers was introduced to large-scale fundraising through the media in 1948.
I started my community work really in 1948. McCartney selected me, and I was a young journalist then, to do all the publicity for the first ever Red Cross appeal in Western Australia. It was a national appeal. 1948, what was I, 23 or 24? I've been involved in charitable things since then and thoroughly enjoyed it.
A year later, the telethon concept was born in the United States, when in 1949, Milton Berle, a popular American comedian, hosted the first such event. The first published use of the word telethon appeared in the following day's newspapers. Milton Berle's career as an entertainer spanned over 80 years, first in silent films, then in vaudeville, then in radio, followed by movies and television.
You caused more television sets to be sold.
How did you know?
My father sold his, my uncle sold
Oh,
his.
shut up!
Hello to everybody. This is me, Jerry Lewis. That's my partner, Demon, and this is Uncle Milty Burl, Milton Burl. We're here at the Brown Derby because we want to tell you, ladies. Well, actually, the reason we're here is because I'm hungry.
Yeah,
let's eat something. I'll have a little flour. Just some
We're here for a reason.
What do you mean? Oh,
because
yes.
we're going to do this muscular dystrophy thing from New York about the 29th and the 30th. And the reason telethon. The reason we asked Mr. Milton Berle is because he's the first one that did a telethon, right?
That's right, and he is the man that knows so much about telethons, and we figured he'd be the best man to tell you folks
So,
about
Milton, you tell the people all about this one.
I'd be very glad to if you get through talking.
I'm sorry.
get out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dean and Jerry are really preparing a tremendous show on June 29th at Carnegie Hall for the muscular dystrophy.
Will you stop
talking, please?
I'm sorry.
This is a 24-hour show for muscular dystrophy.
This resulted in a marathon broadcast, which not only featured the Martin and Lewis comedy team, but other key comedy acts of the era. setting a precedence for all future telethons.
I want to say that right now on the little old show, there's a few men over there getting things together, because you know who's coming on?
Well, I think if they're ready to be introduced, we should tell them. Not yet, though, first.
Are you ready over there?
Are you ready over there?
He says okay. You say the word.
Oh, boy. Spike Jones and the City Slickers. There we go.
Thank you, Dean and Jerry, and thank you, music lovers. It's our premier performance of the Poet and Peasant Overture. Good luck. Where's Freddie?
He hasn't come in yet, you see. Freddie's still out at Universal Studios, you see.
Boy, Ernie, we're missing one of the slickers. We can't do this thing without Freddie.
No one in this whole organization, you see, is indispensable or irreplaceable, you see. Here comes Freddie now, Spike, you see.
Meanwhile, the American comedy duo, comprising singer Dean Martin and comedian Jerry Lewis, who first performed in nightclubs, then on radio, later branched out into television and films.
Oh, just look at that! Watch that football! Rambo, come on! More! Hold it! Oh, just look at that! Watch that football! Rambo, come on!
I think the end is drawing close. I'm not long for this world, Doctor. Oh, and I'm so young. Oh, much too young to die.
A person most influential in the field of fundraising for charity was Jerry Lewis, who was the most prolific performer of energetic, madcap comedy, which proved highly popular. He gained his career breakthrough in 1946 with singer Dean Martin, billed as Martin and Lewis. They would perform together for 10 years, until an acrimonious breakup in 1956. Jerry Lewis began hosting telethons to benefit the Muscular Dystrophy Associations of America in 1952. Lewis had previously taken part in what has been described as the very first telethon. He was a world-renowned humanitarian, philanthropist and #1 volunteer, who supported fundraising for research, and while he was the national chairman of the Muscular Dystrophy Association, Lewis raised $2.6 billion for the cause.
The first significant Australian telethon was conducted by GTV, Channel 9 in Melbourne, in 1957.
It was just after GTV9 had opened up, and I was doing the pyjama game, and on the Sunday they had a telethon, and in those days telethons lasted 6 hours, not 24 hours like they did later on. And I remember Norm Spencer coming up behind me and saying, "See that young guy over there?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's Graham from 3UZ. He said, "Well, we've been trying out all the radio announcers in Melbourne. We're starting a new show called In Melbourne Tonight," and he said, "And he's going to be the one."
Graham Kennedy was an Australian entertainer, comedian and variety performer, as well as a personality and star of radio, theatre, television and film. In the 1960s, his popular In Melbourne Tonight was shown on TVW Channel 7, leading up to Perth's first telethon, at which Kennedy was a most valued guest. Kennedy deliberately pushed the boundaries of acceptability. His style was bawdy, irreverent, often smutty, sometimes deliberately camp.
And now, here's Graham.
In 1961, the town of Dwellingup was destroyed by bushfire, but nobody was killed. The Lord Mayor set up a bushfire relief fund, and TVW then organized the state's first telethon to help garner donations. TVW's program manager and on-air personality, the late Lloyd Lawson, suggested that the station support the Lord Mayor's initiative by using the reach and persuasion of television to appeal to the viewing public. This was TVW's first fundraising venture, using its considerable influence for charitable purposes, a trend which continues to this day with Telethon.
A searing heat wave had turned the bushlands and forest into a virtual time bomb.
On the night of January the 24th, strong easterly winds had whipped up the fire burning on a huge front. The fire was sweeping down out of heavy timbered country into the open paddocks, to farmhouses and the town of Dwellingup itself. Hundreds of volunteer firefighters had come to help, but there was little they could do. Dwellingup was ablaze. The fire was wiping out everything in its path. In the morning, a town had died. About 300 people in the town had escaped by sheltering in the brick hotel or on the recreation ground. Still dazed by the disaster, the people of Dwellingup surveyed their losses. The miracle was that no one had been burnt to death or injured.
Who can adequately describe the scene here at Dwellingup today?
We had cinders being fired 500 metres ahead of the fire, and the town was totally devastated.
Stories to be told here today in Dwellingup are varied and sad and shocking.
We looked out and we could see the flames leaping right around.
Most of them lost everything.
TVW altered its scheduled programs to stage the telethon. Staff stayed back to keep the station on the air until the phone stopped ringing, whilst local artists gave their services free for an informal variety show. This was the beginning of the fundraising journey, which was to achieve heights never dreamt of back in the 1960s. Not only were local talent going to participate, but also national stars, to be followed by some of the brightest, shining stars in show business. Australian stars included Graham Kennedy, Bobby Lim, Johnny O'Keefe, Stuart Wagstaff, Johnny Farnham, Barry Crocker, Normie Rowe, and many more. Normie Rowe has made numerous telethon appearances in a row. Normie has emerged as a true survivor from the wild 60s of rock and roll, after being Australia's most popular singer. He was Australia's heartthrob of the 1960s. Rowe's double-sided hit, a reworking of the Doors' stay hit Que Sera Sera, with B-side Shakin' All Over, was one of the most successful Australian singles of the 1960s. In 1963, Normie Rowe made a memorable appearance at Perth's famed Capitol Theatre. TVW Channel 7 were there covering this as an outside broadcast. The audience of predominantly teenage girls were driven into a frenzy with Normie's performance. So much so, that they began invading the stage, causing much concern when the heavy-handed security brigade began tossing the fragile young things off the stage with much gusto. This infuriated Normie, who retaliated against the aggressive guards by kicking one. Between 1965 and 1967, Rowe was Australia's most popular male star, but his career was cut short when he was drafted for compulsory military service in late 1967.
The ballot to go to Vietnam, they used the Tattersalls barrel in Melbourne, all these wooden marbles with numbers on them. Everybody born on that day was going to go off to Vietnam.
became a crew commander of an armored personnel carrier and served with distinction. But his tour of duty in Vietnam effectively ended his pop career.
When I was just a little boy, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be happy? Will I be rich? This was what she said to me.
Starting in 1966, TVW conducted television appeals for funds to send Christmas food parcels to West Australians serving in the armed forces overseas during the Vietnamese War. This was called the Channel 7 Armed Forces Christmas Parcel Fund. Each food parcel included a Christmas cake, tins of fruit, beer, sweets and cigarettes. The TVW Christmas Parcels was a forerunner in 1966 and 1967 to Telethon, and also a beneficiary of Telethon in 1968, 1969, 1970 and 1971. For the first time in Australian history, the nation's troops received no universal embrace when they returned home from the Vietnam War. When it ended for Australia in 1972, following much opposition to the war and considerable protest, it soon created unfortunate perception that soldiers were baby killers, psychos, drug addicts and warmongers. Much of this conveyed by the Hollywood movies of the day.
The Vietnam conflict became clear to everybody it was a conflict that we couldn't, in the traditional term, win. That it was going to be a political agreement at the end, and I think that left a sour taste in everybody's mouth, including the soldiers. But I do know of a lot of Vietnam veterans who suffered almost immediately, especially national servicemen who were discharged almost immediately after they arrived back in country. Well, for the Vietnam veterans, 1972 was almost like a national washing of your hands of the whole incident. Let's forget about it. When in fact you had 50,000 veterans here that had served their country really well, who hadn't had a chance to express how they felt about the war and hadn't had a chance to be, if you like, publicly acknowledged. It wasn't until 1985 that there was a Welcome Home March conducted in Sydney. It had taken that long, I think, for the conscience of the nation to be pricked and for the Vietnam veterans to be ready for it.
After returning, Normie Rowe worked extensively on behalf of other Vietnam veterans. Many suffered health conditions related to their service during the war. These included diseases related to Agent Orange, a toxic chemical used to clear trees and plants during the war; hepatitis C, an infectious disease that can harm the liver; hearing problems caused by the noise of guns, explosives, rockets, heavy weapons, aircraft, and machinery; and post-traumatic stress disorder. He was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia as recognition for his outstanding achievement and service. Normie became a strong charity supporter, especially for children. A long-serving member of Variety Clubs of Australia, he became their national ambassador, winning their Heart and Soul of Variety Award. Career-wise, As well as a string of music hits, Normie has been a star of stage and television, with dramatic roles in Sons and Daughters, and musical roles in Les Miserables, Evita, Chess and Cyrano de Bergerac, which she helped develop.
Let him be.
This was the culmination of not only a long and successful career in show business, but also a dedication to charitable causes. As demonstrated by Normie's supportive telethon, with his numerous repeat appearances since the early days of this historic fundraiser. Made all the more poignant by the iconic images of the 1983 telethon girl, Tara Dalla Costa, with Normie Rowe, and their emotional reunion at the 50th anniversary of Telethon in 2017. Telethon is a quest with humble beginnings. Its origin here started out on a golf course.
I played golf one day with the director of Princess Margaret Hospital, and I'd seen telethons overseas, and I suggested to him just before he was about to hit off so he'd have something to think about, I suggested to him that how would he think if we held a telethon in Western Australia? Would Princess Margaret Hospital be happy about it? And he said, oh sure we would. That's really how we started that.
The first telethon in 1968 attracted 4 prominent performers in the entertainment industry at that time. Australian rock and roll singer Johnny O'Keefe. In Melbourne Tonight Show host extraordinaire, entertainer, comedian and prominent television star Graham Kennedy. Legend of radio, television and theatre, musician, comedian and pioneer of television variety, Bobby Lim. And the debonair star of television and the stage, Stuart Wagstaff. Johnny O'Keefe's singing career began in the 1950s.
Come on, everybody, it's 6 o'clock. Come on.
In early 1959, the ABC hired Johnny O'Keefe and the DJs as the resident band for its new one-hour live television show, 6 O'Clock Rock, which featured local artists.
Yeah, Junior's set to Channel 2.
Some of O'Keefe's hits include Wild One, Shout, and She's My Baby. In 1961, he moved to ATN Channel 7 in Sydney as comparer of The Johnny O'Keefe Show, which in 1963 was renamed Sing Sing Sing.
The only thing to keep me from blowing my top is to sing, sing, sing.
From 1968 onwards, O'Keefe devoted most of his time to performing on the burgeoning Australian club and cabaret circuit.
The friends I meet, I'm gonna sing, sing, sing. Everybody sing away your troubles. Let's be happy again. Let's shout hallelujah. Sing your blues away. Hey, 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 hey. If you feel downhearted, join me in my song and tell the blues so long.
Bobby Lim's most successful television shows were The Mobile Lim Show, Australia's first national television show, and Bobby Lim's The Sound of Music, which ran for 9 years, from 1963 to 1972. The Sound of Music was the country's top-rated show for most of that time. Bobby Lim was married to fellow entertainer Don Lake, who often appeared with him. Beauty and the Beast was an Australian panel television show that has appeared in numerous versions since the early days of Australian television. Stuart Wagstaff was one of the popular beasts, when the beauties included Maggie Tapper, Dita Cobb, Ina Harwood, Pat Furman, Patricia Lovell, Hazel Phillips and Nolan Brown. With the highly popular but very naughty Graham Kennedy, lacked in singing ability, he made up in ribald humor and slapstick. This was manifest in the segment nearing the end of the first telethon in 1968, when Kennedy instigated a strip between himself, Bobby Limb, Stuart Wagstaff and Johnny O'Keefe.
I beg your pardon? The Premier's coming. The Premier's coming! The Premier's coming! Hurry up! Listen, hang on, we're starting to panic. Perhaps the Premier's in the nutty too.
This provided not only great humor, but also lasting memories of the first telethon, which has made every highlights reel ever since. Max Bostock was the executive producer of the early telethons until he left the company, following the takeover by Robert Holmes Accord in 1981.
It's my pleasure on behalf of all of us here at Channel 7 to officially open Telethon.
McKenzie has kindly provided his recollections of the first telethon in 1968. At that time, Keith was directing In Perth Tonight with Gary Meadows and Joan Bruce. Gary Carvalho, who was the first host of this program, was now taking on the role of producer. Gary had earlier had the opportunity to witness not only telethons being conducted in the eastern states, but also see the Jerry Lewis telethons conducted in the United States. Keith points out that in 1968, they were heading into the unknown with the first local telethon. He said that for Gary Carvalho and he, it was rather like another variety or Tonight Show, just longer. That first one ran for 20 hours, and as Keith was the director of the main variety shows at the time, he was assigned to direct the whole 20 hours himself. Keith's main contact on the studio floor, apart from the floor managers, was Gary Carvalho, who was the floor producer. It was an ad-lib production, with only the opening segment and dance routine scripted and rehearsed. The closing sequence with Sir James was also scripted but not rehearsed. In subsequent years, when Keith wasn't directing the whole show, his production assistant and he would have a meeting with Sir James, and latterly with Robert Holmes Accord, to go through their scripts and produce a camera script for the closing sequences. During the main show, they needed to be prepared for anything to happen, both from the entertainment acts and the panelists. This photo shows some of the telethon crew and personalities who engaged in the production during the first few years. Here we have identified Bob Finkel, Les Beck, Brad Pierce, John Slater, Murray Kelso, Jim Cruthers, Gary Meadows, Ernie Oxley, Stephanie Quinlan, Jeff Newman, Gary Carvalho, Brian Smith, Max Taylor, Bob Page, Max Bostock, John Easton, Stuart Wagstaff, Graham Kennedy, John K. Watts, Richard Ashton, Terry Green, Alan Smith, and Norm O'Loughlin. Sadly, a number of the other faces are obscured.
And forevermore, that's how you'll stay.
During the 1970s, many Eastern States personalities and a few overseas stars appeared on Telethon. Maggie Tadbury often appeared in the company of Stuart Wagstaff. She is a dual Gold Logie-winning Australian fashion, publishing, and media personality who has appeared on many telethons. Kamal, is a Malay-born Australian singer and recording artist. He has been in the Australian music industry for 50 years, and throughout that time has made some memorable TV and film appearances, as well as concerts. Alison Durbin is a former New Zealand-Australian pop singer, known for her success in the late 1960s and 1970s, as the Queen of Pop. For 3 years running, 1969, 1970 and 1971, she won Australia's Queen of Pop Award for Best Female Artist. In 1971, she recorded a duet album, Together, with John Farnham, who had been voted Australia's King of Pop. During the same years Durbin received her awards.
Crime hasn't got a chance with the...
Gerard Kennedy is an Australian double Gold Logie Award-winning actor, who in 1967 shot to fame in Australian television spy drama, Hunter. Kennedy followed this with a starring role in the television series, Division 4, between 1969 and 1975, winning multiple Logie Awards, including 2 Gold Logie Awards, as most popular personality on Australian TV, for his work in the series. American burlesque star, Alexandra the Great 48, traveled the world as a headliner into the late 1970s. She made a big impression, whilst performing her disrobing act, late at night, on Telethon. Many cast members, of the raunchy No. 96, Australian television soap opera, were guests on Telethon. This included Pat McDonald, who played Gossip, Dory Evans, and had the amusing habit of pronouncing words in a nonsensical or ludicrous context.
Like what, Dory? Like she just did. Well, go on, do something. What should I do?
Chantal Contouri is a Greek-Australian television and film actress and former dancer, best known for her role in the 1970s soap opera, No. 96. She performed a memorable musical number with the South African cardiac surgeon, Dr. Christian Barnard, who performed the world's first highly publicized heart transplant.
I thought I knew just what made men tick.
Telethon guest Elaine Lee became best known in Australia for her role of fashion designer Vera Collins in No. 96. Chart Hayward is best known for his long-running role of camp barman Dudley Butterfield in this television soap opera.
Thanks, doll. You just ruined a perfect shot.
Abigail, shot to fame for her role as a sex symbol in No. 96, as the first actress to play Bev Houghton, from 1972 to mid-1973.
Urgent. Something about your brother. Rod? What about him? Well, I don't know. She wants to speak to you.
Oh, go on then, Bev. Your brother might have dropped dead or something.
Don't you dare say that.
Tony Barber and Barbara Rogers were the undisputed king and queen of TV quiz shows in the 1970s, hosting Smash Hits, Temptation, and The Great Temptation.
Playful, they were cheeky, and Barbie's innocence was loved by viewers, but almost got her into serious strife.
Thank you very much.
Ernie Sigley is a Gold Logie-winning Australian host, radio presenter, and singer. Known as a pioneer of Australian television, Sigley is often styled as a little Aussie battler with a larrikin sense of humour.
I'll say it clear.
Remember the iconic movie, The Adventures of Barry Mackenzie, starring Barry Crocker?
You know, strain the potatoes. G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Barry Mackenzie's the name.
He's got a great big grin and a great big chin. Give him half a chance, he'll be in like Flynn. His great big fist will flatten any palm. He's got a great big thirst, you can do your worst. When they tap the keg, he'll be in there first. It's no use, mate, you'll never win. He's a better man than you are, Gunga Din.
Everything has its time. Show me a reason, and I'll soon show you a rhyme.
He was also a Gold Logie award-winning character actor, television personality, singer, and variety entertainer.
Well, I don't fit in there anywhere I go. Rivers belong where they can ramble. Eagles belong where they can fly.
Then there was the crazy, yet highly entertaining persona of Jeannie Little, the Gold Logie award-winning Australian entertainer and TV personality. Another quirky lady to entertain was Denise Drysdale, a twice-awarded Gold Logie-winning television presenter, variety entertainer, actress, singer, dancer, and comedian. She is often affectionately known as Ding Dong, a nickname invented by fellow performer Ernie Sigley.
I can leave her on her own, knowing she's okay alone and there's no mess in her. She's a lady. No, she's a lady. Talking about that little lady.
Hey, the fire area.
Really?
I had to say that. It gets him through the day.
Asks very much, and I don't refuse her. Always treat her with respect. I never would abuse her. What she's got is hard to find, and I don't want to lose her. Help me build a mountain from a little pile of clay. But she knows what I'm about. She can take what I dish.
American soap opera stars to visit were Bill Hayes and Susan Seifert Hayes of the long-running NBC drama Days of Our Lives. Another American guest was Cameron Mitchell, a star of the Western television series The Hush Chaparral. Also here to entertain us was Ron Fraser, an Australian actor and comedian. He began in stage review and wrote many skits and gags for the satirical comedy series The Mavis Bramston Show before joining the cast as a regular member in 1966.
Could we have a bit of music background? I think so much. Get plenty of sexy shots of the body beautiful, won't you? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
The Mavis Bramston Show was a weekly Australian television satirical sketch comedy review series which aired on the Seven Network from 1964 to 1968. Before leaving the 1970s, one should mention a little-known fact that Alexandra the Great 48 was born a male with the given name Gary Paratus, who as Gail Sherman worked the nightlife, Chicago's longest-running drag bar, as a female impersonator. The pre-op transsexual, Gail Sherman, made up in looks what she lacked in singing talent. It seems female impersonation was a lucrative means to an end, as it paid for her hormones and surgery.
It was a Friday night, and it was amateur night. And I was really very annoyed because this one girl, they just wouldn't stop clapping for her. And they were all on stage taking a bow, but after they finished, I was supposed to come out for mine. And they just wouldn't stop. And I heard Rose call backstage, and she said, "Tell Alexandra not to go out." So ego got the best of me, and I told them to turn the spot on. And I had a white robe, transparent robe with a white hood, and I took everything off, and I walked on stage, turned the spot on, and I could hear Rose running down the aisle saying, "You stupid bitch, don't do it!" And I stood there for a second, and there was just dead silence, because I didn't have anything on. But they pulled me off stage. Frightening, scary, exciting, all in one. But that was probably my biggest disaster, I think, falling off stage. The last night I worked, someone threw a bomb in this club. And that's the last night I ever worked.
She then changed her name to Brandy Alexander, and with her new 48-inch bust, embarked on a second career as a stripper, using the stage name Alexandra the Great 48.
the open arms of a love that's waiting there. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she precious? Listen for me.
The 1980s witnessed a change of ownership for TVW Channel 7, as Robert Holmes-Accord took control. The telethon culture underwent a change, with Holmes-Accord's Telethon Trust taking over from the Telethon Foundation, established under Sir James Cruthers. The Trust's practices also attracted criticism from the Sunday Times, while Sir James was the chairman of that newspaper. One big positive was the high caliber of overseas entertainers attracted during the Holmes-Accord era. The 1980s experienced the likes of acclaimed singers Sammy Davis Jr., Stevie Wonder, Whitney Houston, Petula Clark, Gene Pitney, Cliff Richard, and Julie Anthony. Then there were the husband and wife British actors, John Alderton and Pauline Collins, the British songwriting and performing team of Jackie Trent and Tony Hatch, the American actor Jack Klugman, megastar Dame Edna Everage, and a non-performing appearance by Michael Jackson. Sammy Davis Jr. was an American singer, musician, dancer, actor, vaudevillian, comedian, and activist known for his impressions of actors, musicians, and other celebrities.
I gotta say this, and maybe it's not apropos to say. Guys like myself come over and we try to contribute. And people say, well, why does an American come over? I'll tell you very simply. I've been coming to Australia since 1957. The people in Australia have been very supportive to me through the years. And I can never forget their warmth, their supportiveness, and the Australian performers who have been so supportive as well, to share what is basically theirs. This is their bailiwick. I'm at best a friendly interloper, but know that it comes from my heart. But I got to tell you that when I look at the people who make this telethon work and have made it work for all the many years, I am thrilled to be a part of their proceeding.
The Blind Stevie Wonder is an American singer, songwriter, musician and record producer. A prominent figure in popular music, he is one of the most successful songwriters and musicians in the history of music. Whitney Houston was an American singer and actress. She was cited as the most awarded female artist of all time by Guinness World Records and remains one of the best-selling music artists of all time with 200 million records sold worldwide.
To the open arms of a love that's waiting there.
Petula Clark is an English singer, actress, and composer whose career spans 8 decades.
The work is behind you and the shop and the store, put the lock on the door. Just get away where your worries won't find you. If you like, I'll tell you more. Don't let the day get the better of you. When the evening comes, there's so much to do. You better put on your best, wear a smile. Just come along with me a while, 'cause I tell you, I know a place where the music is fine and the lights are always low. I know a place where we can go.
Gene Pitney was an American singer, songwriter, musician, and sound engineer. Pitney charted 16 top 40 hits in the United States, 4 in the top 10. In the United Kingdom, he had 22 top 40 hits and 11 singles in the top 10. In 2002, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He was the bravest of them all. The man who shot Liberty Valance, he shot Liberty Valance. He was the bravest of them all.
Lovely to have you with us. Jean, talking Tom Richards, Jean Pitney, Lorraine Desmond, Jean Pitney. Now,
And
if
I'm
we can.
Colleen.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so
Nice.
ignorant. Hello, Jean. Very pleased to meet you. I got a kiss. Could you kiss Peter later on? He gets really offended.
I'm glad I didn't get a kiss either.
At the end, yes.
Cliff Richard is a British singer, musician, performer, actor and philanthropist. Richard has sold more than 250 million records worldwide. With his backing group, The Shadows, Richard dominated the British popular music scene in the pre-Beatles period of the late 1950s to early 1960s. John Alderton and Pauline Collins are a husband and wife acting team. Both are known for their roles in Upstairs, Downstairs, Thomas and Sarah, and Wodehouse Playhouse. The British songwriting and performing team of Jackie Trent and Tony Hatch were known for their compositions for Petula Clark, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Jack Jones, Nancy Wilson, Des O'Connor, Val Doonican, Shirley Bassey, and Vicky Carr.
My love is warmer than the warmest sunshine, softer than a sigh. My love is deeper than the deepest ocean, wider than the sky. My love is brighter than the brightest star that shines every night above, and there is nothing in the world that can ever change my love. Hey, let's do it again and again. If you can count up to 10, that'll give me a chance to get my breath back. Then we'll do it again and again. Don't stop until I say when, 'cause you got what it takes to sort out the boys from the men. Come on now. Cover my world with sunshine, yellow each day. Let's be all sing and enjoy yourselves. Cover my world with happiness all the way. Just take the green from the grass and the blue from the sky up above. And if you color my world, just paint it with your love. You can color my world.
Forget him if he doesn't love you. Bobby right there. He'll break your heart, you wait and see. So don't you cry now, just tell him goodbye now. Forget him and please come home to me.
Call me, don't be afraid, you can call me. Maybe it's late, but just call me. Tell me and I'll be around. Oh, you better call me. Don't be afraid, you can call me. Maybe it's late, but just call me. Tell me and I'll be around.
The American actor Jack Klugman was an American stage, film, and television actor who is fondly remembered for starring in the television adaptation of The Odd Couple, opposite Tony Randall. The series aired from 1970 to 1975. Klugman won his second and third Primetime Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe Award for his work on the series. From 1976 to 1983, he starred in the title role in Quincy, M.E., for which he earned 4 Primetime Emmy Award nominations. Dame Edna Everage is a character created and performed by Australian comedian Barry Humphries.
Look at celebrities. Who are they? Tomorrow's non-entities, really. I've never been a celebrity. I'm a legend, an icon, if you... But not a celebrity. I feel it's almost an insult to be called a celebrity. It wasn't intended. I've never heard you called a celebrity.
Michael Jackson appeared on the October 1985 telethon as part of a deal with Western Australian millionaire Robert Holmes Accord, who owned the television station at the time, to acquire ATV Music Publishing. Jackson could not perform due to contractual reasons, but he spoke briefly and met the little telethon stars.
Gentlemen, please welcome to Perth for Telethon 1985, Michael Jackson.
When Michael Jackson came, he was under a contract, a recording contract. He was not allowed to perform.
Still, this was his second live television appearance ever, a huge showbiz coup. But not everyone was impressed.
He touched my face and I told him to go away, his hands were cold.
Just 4 at the time, telethon child Helen Francis wasn't the only one overwhelmed by the attention. The King of Pop was also a bundle of nerves.
I just found it absolutely remarkable that this brilliant performer who could do his moonwalk in front of 100,000 people but was embarrassed to be in such a small, intimate group.
While he was here, he visited the kids at PMH.
It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience to see all the children.
And squeezed in some shopping.
He bought a most astonishing pair of antique books about skin diseases from, I think, probably from the 19th century.
As a child, Helen's highlight was someone who hasn't missed a single year.
That was all I wanted to do, was sit on Fat Cat's knee.
And did you get to do it?
Yes, I did.
In 1980, Telethon hit the $1 million mark for the first time. It's gone up ever since.
Robert sold him the music catalogue that was in the company which we bought in the UK. It owned the Beatles music.
And now my life has changed in oh so many ways.
It was a tough deal, negotiated by Holmes Court's right-hand man, Bert Reuter.
And we had given Paul McCartney first right of refusal, but Paul didn't want it at that time, so Michael Jackson's people approached us and we negotiated with him, but the writing and breakpoint condition was that he had to come to Telethon.
But in fact, when Michael bought that music catalogue, I'm quite convinced that it wasn't for the Beatles music, because he never ever did anything with that. It was actually because what was politically incorrectly called, I suppose, the black music. It was the Nat King Cole and all those great American singers and dancers.
Telethon's executive producer, John Crilly, had to make sure it worked.
One of the funny ones was we had to have in his dressing room a very large glass bowl full of Smarties. And that we thought was, well, that's fine, he's obviously a bit of a chocolate freak, but we had to take all the brown ones out.
It was a telethon weekend Janet Holmes Court will never forget, especially this telethon garden party.
Yes, and you would remember that too, Alison, where he was driven up to a parking space which was only about 5 metres from the marquee, and he was petrified on the walk from the marquee, from the car to the marquee, that the sun might get on his skin, because he obviously had started on his program of plastic surgery, which is very sad too. But he just was not capable of being in a room with 100 people and feeling comfortable. His social skills were sadly lacking, and I just keep saying over and over again to myself how sad that was. He was absolutely trembling and clinging on, and I don't say that it was anything special about me. It was just to cling on to someone for the security. I mean, I could have been a blanket.
This is how his fans were used to seeing him. But on front stage, before a peak statewide television audience here in WA, Michael Jackson could not do what he does best.
Michael, welcome to Perth, officially. We've had the Lord Mayor's welcome and the thousands of teenagers and youngies and oldies who gathered to see you today. You've had a pretty busy day so far.
Yes, I have.
The Peter Pan with a baby voice, only at ease with children.
Hi. So sweet.
Michael's a very famous singer and dancer.
We had an outside broadcast on the Saturday morning outside the entertainment centre. We were hoping that Michael would arrive there, but we were unsure whether he ever would. And finally he did arrive, and he stood on the balcony above. The crowd just went absolutely mad. Then he walked down to the crowd, and there were no real barricades or anything there because nobody expected that to happen, and it was absolute chaos.
But while he was in Perth, there were several secret outings for Michael Jackson.
Interestingly, while he was in Perth, he did go down to Fremantle and record some Aboriginal people playing didgeridoos and clicking sticks and so on.
We're terrifically pleased that you came, Michael. Thank you very much for coming.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest for Telethon 1985, Michael Jackson.
Well, that brings Telethon to a close. We look forward to seeing you again, Sammy, next year. We look forward to seeing all the people again next year who've come every year, who've supported us with their time, with their talent, with their enthusiasm, and have raised so much money for the cause. Thank you to all of them.